Coming up on Tech News Weekly, it's me, Jason Howell, my co-host Mikah Sargent, and a whole lot of tech to talk about this week, thankfully, because last week was pretty quiet. So here we are. We start with Twitter and Jack Dorsey leaving Twitter for Square and Square becoming Block. It's a tangled mess, and it all has something to do with crypto, so we talk about that. Also, what were some of the biggest tech fails of the year? Turns out there's a lot of them. Plus a wacky story about a Ubiquiti hack that came from the inside of the house and not very well, and the tiniest little camera you've ever seen. All that and more coming up next on Tech News Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is Tech News Weekly, episode 211, recorded Thursday, December 2nd, 2021. This episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by Melissa. The U.S. Postal Service processes more than 98,000 address changes daily. Is your customer contact data up to date? Try Melissa's APIs in the developer portal. It's easy to log on, sign up, and start playing in the API sandbox 24/7. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned for free at melissa.com/twit.
And by Plextrack, the powerful yet simple security management platform that helps you to get the real cybersecurity work done. With Plextrack, you'll streamline your assessments, analytics, and reporting. Visit plextrack.com/twit and claim your free month.
And by Command Line Heroes, an original podcast from Red Hat that tells the epic true tales of developers, programmers, hackers, geeks, and open source rebels who are revolutionizing the technology landscape. Season 8 is out now. Search for Command Line Heroes on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Hello, and welcome to Tech News Weekly, the show where every week we talk to and about the people making and breaking the tech news. I am one of your hosts, Mikah Sargent.
And I'm the other one, Jason Howell. It's good to see you, Mikah, and good to be in a week where we actually have tech news to talk about, because last week, boy, that was a hard week.
Last week was a
quiet.
doozy, but this week we've got tech nuggies, tech nugs,
tech nuggets. Yes, thank you for reiterating the tech nug, because that's something that needs a hashtag on Twitter. So make it happen. So speaking of Twitter, big shakeup at Twitter this week. I'm sure you've heard about it. The sudden announcement by a tweet by its CEO, Jack Dorsey, that he would no longer be CEO of the company. Effective immediately. In his place, CTO Parag Agrawal, who has actually been deeply involved with Twitter's exploration to decentralizing the service, also utilizing blockchain technology to do so. And that's going to come in real clear as we get into this discussion. But that was only the beginning, right? So joining us to talk about this and what it likely means is Ben Pimentel from Protocol. Welcome to the show, Ben.
Great to be here. Thank you.
It's great. Yeah, you bet. It's good to have you here, and we really appreciate you taking the time to join us. So there has been, in the last couple of days, a lot of speculation, of course, around the reasons for Jack's sudden departure. And you've written a couple of articles for Protocol, but specifically you're writing about his fascination with crypto. And we've been, hearing about this over the last few years, especially. Jack has not been very shy about tweeting out about his thoughts on crypto and everything. So it totally makes sense. It's part of the reason why I wanted to bring you on, because I think you've nailed it here. Talk a little bit about that. What's your take on that?
In many ways, it wasn't surprising what he did, because over the past few years, especially over the last few months, he's really become more focused on Bitcoin and crypto in general. There was a quote in the story where he said, "If I were not at Square or Twitter, I'd be working on Bitcoin." He said that back in June in Miami. So clearly, he has become fascinated with this new space, which is fast evolving. It started back in 2009, but it's really just picked up over the last 2 years. And Square has edged closer to, has gone into this market with Bitcoin, offering customers access to Bitcoin. They've announced that they are going to come up with their own consumer hardware wallet. That's the devices that you use to store Bitcoin and crypto. And he's just become more outspoken about the promise of this space.
Yeah, and you mentioned in one of your articles a quote from Dorsey at a conference, a cryptocurrency conference in Miami back in June, where he said, "If I were not at Square or Twitter, I'd be working on Bitcoin." And what a way to work on Bitcoin, drop Twitter and focus on your his main squeeze, which is Square, which is a financial entity or a company based on finance. And so it's kind of the perfect ground, like playground for him to really kind of, it seems like, realize his dream of what he could be doing right now.
Yes, definitely. And clearly Square, although it's, like right now, it started out as a financing company, popular among small businesses, that you see those dongles that when you buy something from a retailer or even like a food truck, for instance, you see that. And clearly they want to expand beyond that to offer other services. Cash App is becoming really popular. And Bitcoin is the new frontier that he wants to conquer.
Yeah. So how has the company signaled, and by the company, actually, I mean now, Square, or also known as Block, because by the way, Square is no longer Square. Square is Block.
Exactly.
How did they explain this name change in the interim? Dorsey's stepping away from Twitter, so that was one big piece of news. And then like a day later, 36 hours later, suddenly Square is announced to be Block, and of course Block is very similar to blockchain, even though it's also similar to Square. So how did the company translate this name change to everyone? Did they specifically call out crypto as kind of an influence, a rationale?
I mean, that's sort of the strong suggestion, given the direction of the company and given the increasing focus and increasing role of crypto in fintech in general. So it's not sort of unusual and surprising, given that other companies in fintech, financial technology, like even Robinhood, the start of the year was seen as something as an online trading app, but becoming increasingly more focused on crypto, given the rapid growth of that space, and they're moving into other areas like even a wallet and other offerings that focuses on this technology.
Yeah, no kidding. Now, we've got, as you say, Square is not new to dabbling around with, the world of crypto. How deep has Square, I guess I should get used to calling them blocks. Man, we're going through the same Facebook meta thing right now. It's just, everything's changing. I don't know how I feel about it. How deep did their involvement with crypto go prior to now, in particular, compared to their competitors?
I mean, they just a few months ago, Blockstream, a Bitcoin mining company, announced that Square was investing in the company. In July, Dorsey announced that Square was building a new business that would operate alongside the different segments of Square that's focused on Bitcoin. Square has also helped set up the Cryptocurrency Open Patent Alliance, which is an organization that's the goal is really to protect innovation and to defend against patent trolling, which is a problem for any new industry. And so he's increasingly become more involved in this. And he has, if you watch his tweets, a lot of it is about the debates related to regulation in crypto. There was a few months ago, he appeared with Elon Musk on the benefits of blockchain, the direction of blockchain, and he said clearly that he wished that blockchain and crypto was around when he started Twitter, which would have changed the way the company company evolved. So he's going all in on crypto, clearly.
Yeah, clearly. So then now with Dorsey devoted full time to Block, and he's essentially any of the hurdles that may have been perceived to be in front of him before in exploring, full time his crypto obsession. Now he has the ability to do it. What do you think that means for the future of Block? Like, how does that how does that resolve into a version of Block or Square that's really committed to crypto and could be beneficial?
Of course, they have a clear advantage. Square is an established company, an established fintech company. They already have some momentum when it comes to Bitcoin. One analyst I talked to said they're still behind. I mean, they're up against players like Coinbase or even Robinhood. They still have some catching up to do. But at the same time, he's Jack Dorsey. He's respected in the industry. They have engineers who are really experienced in this. I mean, I do this story on Thomas Templeton, who is the head of Square Hardware, who will be one of the point persons in developing the Square hardware wallet, who will be playing a key role in making their goal is really to make Bitcoin and crypto a mass consumer, something that appeals to ordinary consumers. Right now, crypto is growing. It appeals to a big segment, but it's still not there in terms of a mass appeal. And that's what I think what Square is trying to target.
Yeah, and part of that is ease of use, ease of getting of involvement, which there have been changes to that effect with apps like, and services like Robinhood and everything. But Square is a household name. Of course, it's not Square anymore. I have to keep reminding myself it's Block. Yeah. But do you think, what about the activists? Like I keep reading about activist investors influencing or applying pressure on Dorsey over the past months. Is that related to kind of this whole crypto thing as well?
That's sort of the Twitter side of the story, right? Because clearly it's hard to run two major companies. And there have been reports, there's been reporting done by the Wall Street Journal, for instance, that there was some pressure on Dorsey in terms of the kind of focus he's putting into Twitter. Because Twitter still has its own issues, has its own problems, has its own challenges, and you need someone full-time to really focus on those challenges. And Dorsey has clearly signaled that he is really more interested in Block and its future in the crypto realm. And and again, it's not surprising that it happened this way in terms of him giving up his role in Twitter, which of course he's in much more widely known brand, but his attention is just really something else on something else now.
Yeah, indeed. I want to wrap things up with one thing that I read yesterday. Was Kevin Roos wrote for the New York Times and was kind of writing about like why we're suddenly seeing so much of this movement and transition in the top echelon of big tech. And a lot of it has to do with, the potential, at least Kevin posits, that crypto is kind of the landing pad for these burned out tech employees or tech, executives that, 10, 15 years ago, they were new to the scene, but they were really excited about this thing called social media. And now social media has developed over the years and become, yes, incredibly influential. But with that comes a lot of power, a lot of pressure. I mean, pressure from all directions. It's influencing everything. Do you think that's kind of part of what's going on here? That maybe someone like Jack Dorsey is like, you know what, that kitchen's got a little too hot. This is my new obsession. This is like, and I think I even saw like a tweet from someone saying crypto right now is the internet, 1997. And do you think that's kind of some of the thinking that's happening here in situations like this?
The buzzword right now is Web3.
Web3.
Talks about, the Web 1 was, when the web emerged in the late 90s and led to the dot-com boom, which led to the crash. And after that, you have Web 2, which is social media. So that's where Facebook, Twitter became the powerhouses. Web 3 is about decentralized finance. It's about blockchain. It's about money and creating that platform where you create a new vision for the web that's decentralized, not just for finance, but for other things. That's where NFTs come in. That's where you're creating new business models for artists to make money from their work in a more efficient, decentralized manner. At the same time, you have more attention from the regulators on that. Because that's more, in a way, it's more revolutionary than Web 1 and Web 2. And I guess in a way that I see this as posing a challenge to established technology titans like Jack Dorsey and others. And it's a new frontier in a way. It's the next frontier of the web revolution.
Yeah, it really feels that way. And it certainly seems like, people like Jack Dorsey believe in that as well. So very curious, very interesting stuff. Benjamin Pimentel, thank you so much for hopping on with us today. You write, of course, for Protocol, and Ben has written a number of articles about this topic, as well as a whole lot of other stuff around kind of cryptocurrency and modern finance and everything. If people want to follow your work or find you online, where can they find you?
Protocol.com is our site. I'm on Twitter at Ben Pimentel, and I'm on LinkedIn.
Right on. Cool. Ben, thank you so much for hopping on with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. Take care of yourself. All right. Coming up, we've got Mikah's story of the week. That's up next. But first, this episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by Melissa. And Melissa is all about having accurate customer address data. It's crucial for your business. And did you actually know that nearly 36 million address changes were processed by the U.S. Postal Service in 2020 alone? That's a huge chunk of customers that potentially you could be missing out on. 30% of customer data goes bad every year, but Melissa can help make sure your data is current and accurate. Melissa is both experienced and independent, has over 35 years of data quality expertise, which actually explains why over 10,000 businesses know them as the address experts. Melissa also has a renewal rate of over 92%. Because 25% is the typical ROI for Melissa customers. You can do a number of things with Melissa. You can verify addresses, emails, phone numbers, names, all in real time with Melissa. Melissa's global address verification service verifies addresses for more than 240 countries and territories at the point of entry. And I guarantee you've seen this when you're entering in a form and it asks for your address and you start to put it in. It gives you that list of addresses and you can click the right address instead of having to type in your city and your state and everything else. And it just auto inserts it. Really, really useful. If you're tired of duplicate customer information in your database, Melissa's data matching will help eliminate clutter and duplicates. And that actually increases the accuracy of the database. It also reduces postage and mailing costs. There's identity verification, so you can reduce the risk and ensure compliance, and of course, keep your customers happy. You've got geocoding enrichments that convert addresses into lat-long coordinates. That's useful. Email verification that removes up to 95% of bad email addresses from your database. And so much more. Melissa's flexible deployment options offer different platforms to suit any preference, any business size or budget. So they've got flexible on-prem, web service, secure FTP processing, and SaaS delivery options. Melissa also has their new Lookups app on iOS and Google Android devices, where you can search addresses, names, and a whole lot more at your fingertips. Melissa continually undergoes independent security audits. That's to reinforce their commitment to data security, privacy, and compliance requirements. They're SOC 2, HIPAA, and GDPR compliant. Not only that, Melissa's Global Support Center offers 24/7 world-renowned support if you sign up for a service-level agreement. You want to inquire about that today. Melissa is still supporting communities and qualifying essential workers as well during COVID-19. You can actually see if your organization qualifies for 6 months of free service by applying online at melissa.com. And finally, have to mention, Melissa's been named to Gartner's Magic Quadrant for Data Quality Solutions for a second year in a row. Nice job. Make sure your customer contact data is up to date. Try Melissa's APIs in the developer portal. It's easy to log on, sign up, and start playing in the API sandbox 24/7. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned for free. All you have to do is go to melissa.com/twit. That's melissa.com/twit. Thank you, Melissa, for your support. All right, story of the week time for you, Mikah. What you got?
This story is so wild. If you have heard about, it's like it's a con artist. It's a bit of hacking. It's exorbitant amount of money. It's ridiculous. So many of you, myself included, may remember earlier this year, I believe it was, when there was a data breach from Ubiquiti Networks. Ubiquiti makes lots of different network connection devices. So they've got, network devices for businesses and network devices for the home and everything in between. And they suffered a data breach. They told everybody, hey, look, we've had some sort of data breach and you all need to be made aware of it. It turns out, this is so wild, that it was an internal employee who was responsible for this breach. So I want to kind of get into this because this is kind of, again, wild how this goes. So Nicholas Sharp is the alleged hacker who was arrested and charged today with data theft and attempting to extort his employer. But it goes further than that. So not only was Nicholas arrested and charged for that, but this is how it goes. The indictment says that Sharp stole gigabytes of information from Ubiquiti's AWS and GitHub infrastructure. And he did this by using his cloud administrator credentials. So because he was a trusted employee and had cloud administrator tools, he was able to clone things from the GitHub repository over SSH. Now, you don't obviously, I should not, if I want to hack TWiT, I should not just log onto my computer and type in the right codes, whatever they happen to be. I have no idea to hack TWiT. I need to, right, exactly. I need to mask my IP first, right? So I'm going to turn on a VPN so that it looks like the hacking is coming from somewhere else. So the person who did this, Sharp, did use a VPN, used Surfshark's VPN services, did it from home to hide his IP address. Unfortunately for him, I'm not saying it's unfortunate in the case because it's great this was discovered, but unfortunately for him, there was an internet outage. And if you know anything about VPNs, you know that they are, you turn them on and then they start working. But if the internet goes out, even for a second, and the VPN isn't set up properly, it might disconnect from the VPN, and then briefly your internet connection is back through the normal internet connection before the VPN turns on again and says, okay, now we're routing traffic through this. So if you're trying to do the hacksy stuff, you have to be very, very careful. And so an internet outage temporarily exposed Sharp's home IP address. But Sharp didn't just use a VPN to mask his home IP address. He also went into the company's servers and changed the log retention policies so that it would only last for 1 day. The retention log would only last for 1 day, meaning that it was constantly being erased who was accessing what and when. So that way you get in there, and even if you're doing it from another place, through the VPN, or if you were doing it from home, none of that was being held and saved on the server. And so then it was hard to figure out who was doing this. Now, there were some other things, some other tooling around that happened that Sharp did. But it doesn't stop there. Ubiquiti said, hey, here's the deal. We have a data breach, and we think that this is not great, obviously, and we are working to figure this out and get this all figured out. When Ubiquiti disclosed, they were dealing with an anonymous hacker who sent them a message saying, if you don't pay for these files, then we are going to, just give this information out, right? This hacker was like, hey, I've got all of this information. I'm going to expose you, and all of the information that's there and all of your, customers' information is going to be given out. So pay me $2 million. Well, Ubiquiti, when they got the ransom, they refused to pay it and immediately set out to discover where these different tracks were, where, things were happening, and discovered a backdoor. They changed all of their employee credentials, and then they let out that January 11th security breach notification. Here's what's wild. Again, so, every single step of this is just wild to me. So Sharp is the anonymous hacker. Surprise. Sharp is the one who sent the message saying, I've got this information and I'm going to release it. And then Ubiquiti is able to kind of clap back a little bit and say, we found the doors for your entry. We're not paying this money. We've let everybody know what's going on. And it started to die down, right? So what does Sharp do? Sharp starts contacting press and saying, hey, I work for Ubiquiti, and I'd like you to know that Ubiquiti has no data retention policies for their logs because Sharp is the one who changed them. And also a bunch of other things that he had the details to because he was the one who was doing the hacking. So what happened there? He was pretending to be a whistleblower for the company.
Yeah, right.
And in doing so, Ubiquiti's stock price fell 20%, which was about $4 billion of losses, all because he was not happy that they weren't paying and wanted to make it seem bigger than it was so that they would pay the person who was the anonymous hacker. Meanwhile, he was all 9 of these people at this point. Anyway, he's currently been charged with 4 counts of all of this stuff. I can't remember exactly what it is. And basically that will lead up to a maximum sentence of 37 years in prison if Sharp is found guilty. So again, this is all still being kind of worked out. This is just the indictment. It's not that he has been found guilty yet. But what a twisty-turny sort of wild hack and con man story this is. It's just, wow. There needs to be some sort of show that I can watch about this story.
Kind of sounds silly too. Like, like listening to this play-by-play, I was like, really? You thought that was gonna work?
Right.
Really?
Right.
Okay. And then the next step's like, all right. I mean, if anything, it shows that Sharp had some, was willing to go to town, but I don't know that Sharp was ready to play the game necessarily. I'm looking at the stock outlook for Ubiquiti for the year, and sure enough, back in March when this happened, it was at a high of $389. Dropped down once this was revealed, like you said, to around 290-ish, and it's stayed around there ever since. Little fluctuations. Right now, it's at 299-ish or 296, but so I mean, lasting long-term impact throughout the rest of the year. So that's not that's not a joke. That's not like a quick recovery. Like, we figured it out.
Exactly.
Oh, it's just this dude over here, and yay, we're back to square one again. Like this has lasting impact. Toad Sloth in chat says crime is not done by geniuses usually, and
this is true.
I mean, sometimes it is, but in this case,
it's like the crime of tax evasion is done by geniuses, but outside of that, I think for the most part, no, I agree. Crime is not done by geniuses. Anyway, go read through this. This was from Bleeping Computer to learn a little bit more, but I just thought all these twists and turns, and then I was just, I have to admit, I was a little bit it was just at home using like a VPN people have heard of. It just feels like there should be deeper, darker tools available. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there probably are. But at the same time, Sharp was enough of an employee at this company, this big network infrastructure company, that he had administrator credentials. So that would lead me to believe that he was a pretty experienced individual. And so I just sometimes you do want to know what led to this, the other person's side of things. Was the company just not paying him enough? Like, why?
Yeah, I know. What is the rationale?
What is the rationale? I know that
it's just opportunity, right? Or it's somebody on the inside that has that Office Space moment where they were like, I don't know if you've seen Office Space, where they make that connection of like, wait a minute, if we round down every, percentages of a cent and put that into, it's like suddenly you're presented with that opportunity. And what do you do in the face of that opportunity? Maybe that's it. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Wild story. Again, go check it out on Bleeping Computer. But up next, we're going to take a look at the biggest tech fails of 2021. But first, this episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by PlexTrack, the security management platform that brings you better reports, deeper assessments, and more insights. If you spend hours and hours reporting security issues and feel like it's getting you nowhere, and if you're buried in data but still can't get a full picture of your security posture to prioritize remediation efforts, well, we've got the solution for you. PlexTrack empowers continuous assessment, automated workflow, and effective collaboration between teams to help cybersecurity professionals do more in less time. You can create assessment reports in half the time and centralize your remediation efforts across all scans, assessments, and audits through powerful risk visualizations, scanner and ticketing integrations, and enhanced analytics to effectively communicate risks in real time. Whether red or blue, there is a PlexTrack for every security professional to save time and get the right work done. Red teams can import findings from numerous vulnerability scanners, include screenshots and videos with auto-formatting, create customized templates, and export to Word with one click, streamline the report writing process to deliver better reports faster. And blue teams can customize internal and external assessment questionnaires, synchronize findings with task management tools like Jira Cloud, assign findings to team members and track status over time, and provide attestation of security posture with robust analytics. Whether you're with a small to medium-sized security consultancy, a full-scale MSSP, or a large enterprise, security teams of all sizes and specialties will work more effectively and efficiently with PlexTrack. PlexTrack is the premier cybersecurity workflow management and reporting platform for every professional, from practitioner to CISO. There's truly a PlexTrack for every security team. PlexTrack improves the entire security engagement lifecycle by making it easy to generate security reports, deliver them securely, and track the issues to completion straight from the platform. So book a demo today. Try PlexTrack for free for 1 month and see how it can change your life as a security professional. Simply go to plextrack.com/twit and claim your free month. That's plextrac.com/TWIT. And of course, we thank PlexTrack for their support of this show. All right, as we round out this year, we're in our final month of 2021. It's time to take a look back. Maybe laugh, maybe cry, maybe do a little bit of anger spiraling. In any case, it's time to take a look at the biggest tech fails of 2021. And we have CNET's Roger Cheng here to talk to us about those very things. Welcome to the show, Roger.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, glad to have you here. So, of course, we don't have enough time to cover every single one of these fails, and everybody should head to cnet.com and check out the article. But let's start with the one that you consider the worst, because, surprise, surprise, I also consider it the worst. What's the biggest tech fail of 2021 that is a repeat of years before?
Yes, yeah, it's a pretty obvious one, and it's misinformation. And I really did wrestle with the top several items. If we as we kind of run down the top 3 or 4, they're actually all kind of interconnected, but it really all kind of stems from misinformation as a thing, as a problem that has really spiraled out of control the last few years, and has really just sort of hit a peak in 2021. Between vaccine misinformation, between QAnon, they're just the fact that late night talk show hosts were joking about QAnon as a fringe thing now has become so mainstream, this misinformation and the craziness of all of it. It had to be the biggest tech fail. And the fact that a lot of this was put out by the big social platforms, big tech companies, it had to be the number one item. It had to be the biggest fail of the year for me.
Absolutely. Yes. I, as you said, you were kind of concerned that maybe it was that the top kind of stories were a little bit related, but I do think that misinformation on its own, I mean, I don't know about you, but I occasionally have to help out friends and family who come across a fake story who are going, wait, is this true? I'm like, okay, let me gather the notes so I can tell you why, Dr. Calvin is telling you that you should inject horse tranquilizer or whatever.
I mean, I've had it worse. My relatives don't even ask me if this is true or not. They forward it on to me, and I look at what they forwarded on. I'm like, she's like, hey, did you see this? Not as in like vetting. It was more like, please, I shared this with all my friends already. Did you see this?
No.
You might want to pull back some of these want to be a little bit conservative of how you share your emails, and that's really how it happens, right? It's your friends and your family get a hold of this stuff. That's just how big of a problem it is. It's not like, I'm sure it stems from someone. The original sender probably has some nefarious scheme around this, but really it gets down to, it affects your family and your friends to the point where that's why it's become so dangerous and so effective.
Absolutely. Speaking of dangerous and effective, Facebook also made the list. Meta also made the list. And I was hoping you could talk about, because this one, there's lots to talk about here. So if you want to give us a rundown of some of the Meta mistakes of the year.
Yes. And I still have trouble remembering to call it Meta. It's taking me a little while. Like they announced it. I went on my Thanksgiving break and I just forgot about it. And now I've got to retrain my brain to say Meta all over again. It was just kind of a terrible year. I mean, we talked about misinformation. A lot of the reason why misinformation has proliferated so much is because of Facebook and Instagram, these various platforms it controls. There's been the Facebook whistleblower, Frances Haugen, talking about how the company has prioritized profits over the toxic nature of the platforms that they run. There's the fact that a lot of this all happened just a few weeks back. All the bad news, all the negativity, and then they went out and they did their whole Facebook virtual reality conference event where it looked completely tone deaf and just out of touch with the reality, because they talked about the wonders of the metaverse and virtual reality with the backdrop of all these disclosures from the Facebook papers. And it was just a bad year. It's a bad year for Facebook.
Yeah. Indeed. And then we had, and I think this is a big one that has multiple pieces to it as well. A lot of these do. The supply chain, because I think a lot of people may have heard that word for the first time in a long time today. The last time they may have heard about it was a little bit surrounding sort of toilet paper and the supply chain at that point. But now the holiday season is coming around and people are hoping to get their Veruca Salt of a child, the console they're whining about, and are unable to do so. And so tell us about what's going on with the supply chain and why it made the list.
Yeah, well, obviously, this is one that I also wrestled with whether or not to put this as high as it did. And ultimately, it ranked so high because it affects so many people. You just sort of recall at the beginning of the year, the Ever Given cargo ship that was stuck in the Suez Canal. There were memes about it. People were laughing and joking about it. Well, actually, that was kind of a big deal and sort of symbolic of the bigger problems we were having. Ironically, as things were really bad in 2020, supply actually held up pretty well. The problem is all the impact from last year, the things shutting down because of COVID and reopening up, companies not projecting correctly what they actually needed in terms of chips and components. All those rippled over 2021. And as a result, you've got shortages of the most random things. Like I tried to buy tennis balls a few months ago. Couldn't buy tennis balls anywhere. Or if you did, they were like 3 or 4 times the price. And obviously PS5s and the Xbox are sort of the big sort of whales when it comes to hard to find products. But you're starting to find just random things, not necessarily toilet paper, but random products being shorted. And this holiday season, obviously, that's kind of exacerbated all of these problems. And you're starting to see, and while we've been telling people to, buy early, or if you can help it, either make your own gift, buy secondhand. Don't necessarily rely on supply chain because it is still in the middle of failing you. And from what we're hearing, is going to continue to fail or continue to be a problem well into 2022.
Yeah, this is one of those watch this space kind of situations because it's not over. We've got a while to go to sort of reclaim the whole process. Then we had, I think, something that affected many a user in many ways, but may have been sort of stealthy, because when your favorite social media account isn't loading or your bank app isn't popping up, you tend to think that it's just the local internet connection, that there's something wrong with the router, that there's something wrong there. But there were some big impactful internet outages that hit people. It hit different this year because of many more people working from home. So tell us about the internet outages of 2021.
Yeah, there were a number of ones. There are, as you said, a number of outages. Oftentimes they're local. We get alerts about outages all the time. But I think back in June, I think the most infamous one was the Fastly outage. This was one that basically took down half the internet, right, including our site. CNET site was down. Interestingly enough, our writer who covered it was able to access the publishing system and publish the story. She just sort of blindly did it because the front end, the site actually wasn't on. But she published just hoping that someone out there would have a local version of CNET that would be able to, that was cached correctly and was able to get it. But Fastly was obviously the big one. Facebook had its own outage that knocked out the entire system, which was pretty unprecedented, right? All of Facebook, all of Instagram and WhatsApp, and or not WhatsApp, but. And a lot of people made jokes about, having that break from social network, but, we had countries like India that rely on Facebook for internet. We have businesses that rely on Facebook to run as their sort of website or their own portal. And so there was actually a pretty big impact from some of these outages. And as you said, like more and more people were working from home, more and more people were reliant on the internet. And so when these things go out, I mean, there's a real kind of life-changing aspect to it. So it's definitely one of the big fails that these outages happened, and it lasted so long.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was so suddenly people were kind of being able to compare notes, and that's where it kind of got wild. You're going, oh, wait, you too? Oh, this is bigger than we thought. Let's see. Let's have you pick a couple more from the list, because I want people to go and check out your article, obviously, and we don't have too much time left. But what are a few more that you want to share with us that were big tech fails of 2021?
Yeah, I'll run down the list, because I will say just the way that this list has evolved over the years. It used to be a lot jokier, a lot funnier. The product snafus, things that were flops or little errors, but it's gotten a lot more serious. It's gotten a lot more worse. Like there are things that actually we have to be aware of, right? Like one I'd like to highlight is T-Mobile, right? T-Mobile, great reputation for service, but got hacked once again, or not hacked, but suffered another massive data breach that exposed the data of 54 million people, and that is the fifth hack in 3 years. And that's one of those fails that you look at and you're just like, wow, like when I'm looking at my wireless service, do I need to factor in whether or not the sanctity or the protection of my personal data is an issue? And so that's another big one. Robinhood was one that I think there are folks on Reddit who are still angry about, when Robinhood sort of shut down the ability to buy GameStop when it was in its run. That was one of those big key moments that that really kind of, there was already kind of a us against the man type mentality, and when Robinhood shut down the ability for folks to buy up GameStop stock, I think that kind of fueled that kind of conspiracy theory. And, I talked to my reporter who still covers this and follows the chatter there. And Robinhood also, suffered his own data breach, right? Which gave out a lot of personal data. And I asked, like, are people mad about that? They're like, no. They're still angry about that moment back in the beginning of the year. Like, they're still angry about that. They don't care about the data breach, which is potentially more damaging. They care about not being able to buy GameStop stock. So another big fail.
Yes. That Robinhood thing, I had no personal interest in it, but it was, as you said, it was kind of interesting seeing how people responded to that and kind of where the power was placed in that way. Another, I hesitate to even bring this person up because they get enough attention as is, but when it comes to fails, there sure were quite a few from Mr. Musk this year. If you want to round out things with Elon here before we say goodbye.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Elon had his ups and downs, right? He was on SNL. He's by far the wealthiest person in the world. Sorry about that. But yeah, just teasing personal stock sales, which led to Tesla stock tumbling. I don't even want to mention, barely want to mention that. Teasing a proposed school in Texas with a fairly offensive and sexist acronym, taking shots at Bernie Sanders, taking shots at just random folks. It was kind of a terrible year for Elon Musk, especially on Twitter. If you follow the Twitter feed, and we do, obviously we have to follow the Twitter feed. There was a lot to dislike there.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good way of putting it. There's a lot to dislike there. Well, Roger Cheng, thank you so much for joining us today to go through a little bit of your list of the fails of 2021. And it is interesting. When I first clicked on this article, I was just doing it because I thought, I'll have a laugh. And then as I got through it, I thought, no, it used to be joking about the Amazon Fire Phone, right? But this now it was a year of some serious things. So we appreciate you putting that list together. Of course, folks can head to CNET.com to check out that list. But if folks want to follow you online, where should they go to do so?
They follow me on Twitter at Roger W. Cheng, and that's probably the best way to get the up-to-date updates from me.
Awesome. Thanks so much. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Thank
you, Roger. All right, coming up. Oh, and we didn't even talk about 5G, which is next year the year for 5G, or is it the year after that? Or 5G. The year after that? I don't even know. Coming up, new technology in the camera space that actually makes a camera the size of a flake of salt. Really cool development there. But first, this episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by Command Line Heroes. It's an original podcast from Red Hat. Command Line Heroes tells the epic true tales of developers, programmers, hackers, geeks, and open source rebels who are revolutionizing the technology landscape. And it really offers a unique blend of historical context as well as current trends that are really shaping the tech landscape and shaping much of what we talk about on this show all the time. This season actually tackles one question from every angle, and that is, what is a robot? Is a robot a servant? Is a robot a factory worker, a prosthetic? Maybe a robot is a vehicle. It's the smarts driving the autonomous vehicles. Why do we build robots that actually look like us? Why do we have to have our robots a representation of like the humanoid experience? And we often ask whether we can trust robots, right? That comes up a lot. But can robots trust us to make the right decisions for them? And will they eventually be smart enough to determine that, hey, maybe we're not making decisions that are in their best interest, but in ours? Science fiction actually tells us so many stories about robots. They're going to serve our every need in the future, or maybe they're going to develop a mind of their own and turn against us for exactly what I was just talking about, not having their best interest in mind. Maybe they will be the savior of humanity, or they could lead to our downfall. Who the heck knows? All scenarios are plausible, really. Season 8 of Command Line Heroes covers the robots that are in our midst and the determined dreamers who are actually bringing them to life. So you've got 8 episodes that compare the promise of science fiction to the reality of robots today. And I had the opportunity, we did actually, to listen to the first episode of Robot as Servant, and it was super interesting. Here's a clip.
While making this season, we discovered a robot reality that's pretty removed from the robots we imagine. And yet, all those misguided ideas about what a robot should be actually shaped what robots are. And no robot fiction shaped things more than the story we told ourselves about robotic servants.
I love right there at the end when it gets all like vocodery and everything. It really, that's the thing about Command Line Heroes. It's not just a podcast with people, talking. It's highly produced, so you get an entertainment experience as well as learning something. It's an award-winning podcast hosted by Sargent Bark, produced by Red Hat, and you really need to check it out. Season 8 is out now. Search for Command Line Heroes on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you listen to podcasts. We will include a link in the show notes, of course. My thanks to Command Line Heroes for their support. All right. These aren't robots. These are tiny cameras. Researchers at Princeton University and the University of Washington have been working on miniaturizing camera technology, and they've actually developed a system that is the size of a coarse grain of salt. Like, I don't have a camera to really show you, but yes, that small. I mean, tiny, right? Like right on the tip of your fingertip. Paper published on November 29th in Nature Communications shows this insanely tiny camera, as you can see in the photo here if you're watching the video.
It's so small.
I know it's a little camera, but it doesn't look like a normal camera, right? It looks like a sheet of glass, like a tiny little sheet of glass. On this picture, of course, it's resting on the tip of a finger, which really reminds me of so many of the silicon chips images that we see, resting on the tip of a finger. It's kind of the same thing, really. It's a camera. It can produce I would say reasonably sharp full color images, comparable to, they say, a conventional camera 500,000 times larger in volume, according to the report. Yeah. And so then, you're wondering maybe like, what are you going to do with a camera this small? They're designing this with medical applications in mind. Minimally invasive endoscopy endoscopy. I always say that wrong. With the cameras traveling, inside the body, working with medical robots to do things like diagnose disease and treat it and understand, that combined with artificial intelligence. All of that information coming in, thousands of cameras could actually be an array to turn surfaces into cameras, which we'll talk about in a second.
That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, that's super compelling. The tech itself is called, you're going to hear the word again, meta surface. Everything's meta. I'm so sick of meta, but anyways.
Why is everything referring to itself?
Oh, yes, right. But it's produced like a microchip, which really makes a lot of sense when you see the size of it and everything. It really does seem like, very similar to a microchip. It looks like one anyways. The camera system is 0.5 millimeter wide. The metasurface is actually studded with, and if you show that image up at the top of the article again, John, you can kind of see, if you zoom in on the like blown up version of the camera, you see all those little dots. Those are the little like cylindrical posts. The metasurface has 1.6 million of those posts. They each function like an optical antenna. That information is combined with a machine learning algorithm that combines with the light information, and ultimately that can create the sharpest images to date for a system this small. Really, really cool stuff. This article that we're showing right now is on phys.org. It shows a comparison of a similar system in 2018. That is, if you scroll down in the article, you'll see a photo down below, and it shows the comparison of the system from 2018 on the left and the system now on the right. And I mean, you see just this huge
So for folks who are listening, the detail captured with the older system, it looks kind of like one of those, if you put on those fireworks glasses where it sort of spreads out or looking through something as if it's a prism. You can't tell what it is. It's a purple, red, yellow, blue blob of light. And on the right, it's a flower. You can tell it's a flower. That's what the object is in both cases, but on the left, you couldn't really tell what it was. On the right, you can absolutely see it's a flower.
Yeah, the left, I mean, the old image is pretty in its own right.
It's very pretty.
Not a good representation of reality. I know, right? But yeah, so huge improvement in clarity. You actually can see the flower, and you can see it pretty darn well. It's not perfect, of course, but it looks really nice. The fabrication process of this technology is based on silicon nitride, which is compatible with semiconductor manufacturing methods for computer chips. So in essence, these could be mass produced and at a lower cost compared to conventional cameras. So yeah, really cool stuff. And to touch back on this whole surface of cameras, like what they point out, at least in this article, is that yes, right now, one of these could be used, or a number of these could be used, for medical purposes, to go inside of somebody and be able to, see things that were once very hard to see. But imagine an entire surface being an array of cameras, and envision the smartphone that we have today that has this huge camera housing right here and a camera bump and everything. And all of the phones do it differently, but you always have this huge area because the camera technology right now demands so much space in order to be any good. Imagine that the entire surface of the back of your phone is cameras. Like the back of your phone is a camera.
That's cool. Yeah.
The camera array goes away, and it's embedded in the glass, and that's
because the camera is
awesome.
only capturing bits of light anyway, so you could use multiple cameras to capture those same bits of light across the whole surface. That's interesting.
Yeah, pretty cool stuff. And of course, they're working on improving the system right now. It's been all about clarity, which, as you could see from the examples that
they've done a wonderful job, and
they've done a great job there. But now they want to kind of broaden things out as well and get into things like object detection and other functions specific to medicine and robotics. But I thought that was neat.
Very neat
technology like that.
Me too.
I love good positive technology stories. Yeah. That's a really cool development.
Positive tech to follow the fails. I think that's good.
Right. I don't know that it was intended that way, but I'm happy it turned out that way. Good stuff. All right. We've reached the end of this episode of Tech News Weekly. We publish this show every Thursday at twit.tv/TNW. Just go there and you can subscribe to the show in audio and video formats.
If you'd like to get all of our shows ad-free, well, you should check out Club TWiT, because for $7 a month, you can get every single TWiT show with no ads. You also get access to an exclusive TWiT Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else. That's before the scene, behind the scenes, before the show, after the show, et cetera, et cetera. And you get access to the members-only Discord server, which is a place where you can chat with all of us hosts. If you're going, what the heck is a Discord server? It's if you've used Microsoft Teams or Slack or one of those platforms, it's a lot like that. You hop in, all of your Club TWiT friends are there. You've also got many of us hosts and producers and everybody else at TWiT hanging out and chatting. It's a fun place to be. For $7 a month, head to twit.tv/clubtwit. And I should mention, it's a great way to sort of give your employees a gift. If you are, a tech business or, related to tech, we just had a company sign up to give their employees some memberships to Club TWiT. So you can check out our corporate plans if you're looking for a way to keep your employees knowledgeable about what's going on in the tech world, and also just as a little bit of a nice treat, a nice stocking stuffer, if you will. You can also subscribe to individual shows if you'd like on Apple Podcasts. It's $2.99 a month, and you'll get the audio feed completely ad-free. So you hop into Apple Podcasts, find the audio version of Tech News Weekly. You'll see a little button that lets you tap to subscribe, $2.99 a month, and it's yours ad-free. So that's a way to support this show directly if you'd like, as opposed to supporting the whole network. But honestly, they're both great. So you sign up for whichever one you'd like, or as we said, give it as a gift personally or on the corporate level. Also, if you'd like to follow me online and check out the work I do, you can head to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUAHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online. Or you can just type in @Mikah Sargent on many a social media network, and I'll be there. I'll be there. You can also check out Smart Tech Today later today, which I host with my pal Matthew Casanelli. On Saturdays, I'm on the Tech Guy podcast and radio show. And on Tuesdays, I record iOS Today with Rosemary Orchard. So tune in there if you would like. Jason Howell, take it away.
You're a busy guy. You really are a busy guy. I'm at Jason Howell on Twitter. If you go there, there's the link to the Movember that is done. November is done, so I guess that means Movember is done, right?
And you raised your money. Yeah,
I did it. Yeah, I had a goal of $1,000 to raise for awareness of mental health and men's health, and squeaked in with $1,253, and that is in no small part thanks to all the awesome fans of the shows that we do here at TWiT and everything. Couldn't have done it without y'all, and I really appreciate it. That is amazing. I will totally do this again next year. It's been a lot of fun. As for this stuff on my face, I think I'm going to continue letting it grow just because I've never gone this long, so why not longer? We'll see what happens, but I'm not rushing to cut it off quite yet. It's not annoying me enough, and it's not annoying my wife enough for her to insist on it. So at least there's that. I haven't reached that point with her yet.
Just wait.
Just wait. I have a feeling it's going to come. Yeah. But anyways, thank you, everybody. I really do appreciate that. And you can find me, of course, on All About Android and, producing a lot of Leo's shows behind the scenes, TWiT, This Week in Google, Security Now, that stuff. Big thanks to, let's see here, who's editing this week? It's John Ashley. John is back in the studio. So thank you for pushing the buttons. It's good to have you back. Thanks to Burke and also John Slanina for testing our guests. Couldn't do it without you. And thanks to you for watching and listening. We'll see you next time on Tech News Weekly. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
So you got yourself the brand new latest and greatest iPhone or Samsung smartphone because you heard about all of the beautiful photography those things can create. But for some reason, you're just not quite getting it done when you try to make your photos. Or you got yourself a brand new camera because you were interested in getting started in photography, but your little new inexpensive camera still isn't quite cutting it. Well, you need to check out my show, Hands-On Photography, here on TWiT. I'm going to show you how to be a better photographer and a better post-processor, and quite frankly, just help you get the most out of that new camera that's either on your phone or the brand new one that you just got for your birthday or gifts or what have you. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So head on over to twit.tv/hop. That's twit.tv/HOP and subscribe today.